going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. But before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and that the player ratings and potentials may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those of you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those of you out there who just want a few recommendations on what players you could pick up for a certain team. So in today's episode of Who to Sign For, we are going to take a look at the joint richest side in the game, Manchester City of England. Yes, Pellegrini's boys, who to sign for a Manchester City career mode. Now they have a budget of £72 million when you start the game up with, obviously with pre-season tournaments and possibly bonuses as well that could be increased. But regardless, £72 million is around about the budget you'll start with. What did the board want you to do with £72 million? Well, unsurprisingly, win 3 trophies. They want you to win a domestic cup, that's the FA Cup or the Capital One Cup. They want you to win the Premier League, and of course they want you to win the Champions League as well. So 3 strong aims for Manchester City. Of course, never won the Champions League before, so it's a lot to ask for. Yes, when you're given £72 million and a squad like this, really you should be able to do that if you spend wisely and get things going right from the beginning. So you can see Manchester City's squad right here. It is a very, very good squad, unsurprisingly. They strengthened well in the summer with arrivals of Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling and Nicolas Otamendi as well. 3 really good signings there for City for this upcoming season. They've got some really good players. Where to improve with Manchester City? Well, in my opinion, the one area which could really do with some improvement is in the wide areas for defence. So the fullbacks, right back and both left back as well. The right back and left backs, the youngest players are 29. That's Kolarov and Kolarov and Clichy even. And Clichy actually hits 30 before the season starts. As for players that are having their contracts up at the end of the year as well, there's only a couple I think you have to give contracts to. The first one is Nacho, a youngster who starts with 69 overall and has the potential to hit 85, and Angelino, who has an 81 potential rating, starting off with 63 overall as well. Also potential players like Mafia and Selena as well. They've got some decent potential as well. Those players you don't have to give a new contract to, but either way, they could still be pretty good for your squad in the future. But the 2 players you have to give contracts to are Angelino and, of course, Nacho, who has 85 potential. So with City, as I mentioned there, the fullback positions could do with strengthening here at the Etihad Stadium. My number 1 target for a Manchester City career mode is this guy right here, David Alaba of Bayern Munich. Left back, 23 years old, 85 overall already, has the potential to hit 88 as well, and you could well get him for a fee of around £30 million. That's what we'll be spending for the Austrian. £4.5 million over his valuation, yes, but at just 23 years old, 85 overall as well. He may ask for a wage increase too. You'll see his stats in just a moment's time. I'm a big fan of David Alaba, and on FIFA as well, he's a really, really versatile player, and also in real life as well. He can play literally anywhere. Alaba is a great player. He can play left back, holding mid, central mid, centre back. Really, you'll see his stats in just a moment's time. The guy can play anywhere. He's an awesome player, and definitely my number 1 target for a Manchester City career mode. So as you can see, as we wrap up some contracts there for some of the City youth players, obviously again, you don't have to give those guys new contracts. Angelino and Nacho, definitely in my opinion, 81 and 85 potential. They need to be kept at the club, but the others you could probably let them go if you want, unless you plan on using them and giving them some development. I'd also recommend shifting on Demichelis as well. 34 years old, 81 overall. The centre back is aging, will probably start to decrease in the first season. You may not use him much with the arrival of Otamendi as well. Try and get as much money as possible for him. £3.7 million is his valuation. If you can get that, I'd say that's totally fair. Also, I'd sell on Richard Wright too, the 37-year-old goalkeeper. Gotta love Richard Wright's lifestyle, don't you? Being a resi keeper for Manchester City. I'd recommend getting rid of him. He's in the final year of his contract. He's 37 years old. You're not going to be using him. You may as well sell him on, as he's pretty much deadwood. Still following that, as you can see right here, Demichelis is going to Atletico Madrid for £3.7 million. You can keep him if you want. 81 overall is a decent starting overall for a centre-back, and he is a pretty competent centre-back as well. But with the arrival of Otamendi, you may be looking at buying a new centre-back as well. Personally speaking, I just recommend getting him out of the club and getting him off the wage bill. But Alaba for £30 million would be my number 1 target for a Manchester City career mode. He would be a fantastic signing for you. You can see his stats right here, and this is exactly what I meant. Look at those physicals, look at those mentals, look at those technicals. This guy can literally play anywhere. Has left back, CM, CB, and CDM in the list of his positions as well. But the fact of the matter is, know, you don't even have to pay attention to the list of positions there. You can play him wherever. He's got a 4-star weak foot as well. He's an awesome, awesome fullback. He's just an awesome player in general. He would be my number one target for a Manchester City career mode. My second target would be this guy right here, Dani Carvajal. Now, I know I've already signed him in a couple of other Who's to Sign Fors as well. That's because he's probably the best right back you can sign right from the beginning of this year's FIFA career mode. 81 overall, 23 years old, and with the arrival of Danilo at Real Madrid as well, Carvajal is not a first team player there. He's a squad rotation player listed in the game. And so because of that, you may not have to spend as much money as you would think to get hold of the Spanish right back. And of course, he does have the potential as well to hit 85 in the future too, and possibly exceed that with enough good game time and good form. I'd also recommend getting Timo Horn as well, the 22-year-old, 79 overall goalkeeper from the Bundesliga. This guy has the potential to hit 87 in the future. And in my opinion, if you can shift on Willy Caballero, who's, I believe, 10 years older and also one rating lower as well, give him to the German side and try and get Timo Horn, you get yourself a better backup goalkeeper with better potential for the future as well, who could potentially succeed Joe Hart as your number one. But let's be honest here, you'd want to keep Joe Hart as your number one for as long as possible. But this guy's a backup goalkeeper, may grow from the first season as well, only 22 years old, 8 growth in his ratings, can get from 79 to 87, that's a growth rating of 8. That's really, really good. And as a backup goalkeeper, a much safer pair of hands than Willy Caballero, he would be a really good signing. I'd also recommend trying to sell on Alexander Kolarov as well. Once you've brought in David Alaba, you've got Kolarov and you've got Clichy there as well. You don't need both of those left backs, but now you've got the Austrian on your side as well. So a bid comes in for the Serbian. Even though he's been at City for quite a few years now, I'd still recommend letting him go. And I think to Stoke City for £6 million, that would be totally fair. Also, Real Madrid did accept a £13 million bid plus Bakary Sagna, which is quite expensive. Carvajal's valued at £13 million, and of course you've given him a right back as well. But Sagna is a player who you're not going to use much. Obviously, you've got Zabaleta as your first choice right back, and you should look to sign a new one anyway, such as Dani Carvajal. So that, in my opinion, would be a totally fine deal. And you're also reducing the wage bill as Sagna is on 70 grand a week. So Carvajal will accept his contract. He could be your second signing for Manchester City. And again, you're strengthening those fullback areas, the left back and now the right back as well. Carvajal, 81 overall. He may be the same rating or possibly a rating lower actually than Pablo Zabaleta, but you can bleed him into the first team right from the beginning or basically have him as understudy for Zabaleta. Either way, for £13 million plus Bakary Sagna, I still think that's a totally fair deal considering the fact he does have 85 potential and he could hit that in the future as well and be your first choice right back for many years to come. Also, Timo Horn will come in too for £5 million plus Willy Caballero. Even though, as you can see, he's valued at £9.5 million and you're trading out a player who's not a bad backup goalkeeper at 78 overall. You're thinking about the future of Manchester City here. This guy has 87 potential, 79 overall, so already one rating higher than Caballero. This is a deal you don't really have to do. If you want to trust Caballero, that's fine. But in my opinion, when you look at the growth this guy could have, 87 overall in the future, he would be a really, really good signing for Manchester City. Moving on, and I'd also look at this guy as well, William Carvalho from Sporting. Now, as you can see, he's 23 years old, 81 overall defensive midfielder. This guy is one of the best defensive midfielders you can buy on the game. He's really, really solid. He's really, really strong. And he also has the potential as well to hit 88 in the future too. The Portuguese defensive midfielder is your ideal long-term replacement for a Yaya Toure similar player in the team. He'll play a defensive midfield position. He'll be in the first team right away. He's a really, really good player right from the beginning. And imagine that guy at 88 potential, 88 overall I should say, when he hits full potential. He would be an absolute monster. So William Carvalho would be another signing I'd recommend for a Manchester City career mode. Also this guy too, Jose Gaya of Valencia. Obviously, Clichy, as you can see right now, he's 80 overall. He does hit 30 before the season starts. He's not a bad backup left back for your new signing, David Alaba, but again, we're looking at the future here with Manchester City. Gaya is currently 80 overall, the same as Clichy, and he also has the potential to hit 87 in the future as well and grow 7 ratings. He's 20 years old, so he'll be 9 or 10 years younger than Clichy, depending on what stage you are at the game. Gaya would be an amazing backup left back for David Alaba. That's a signing you don't have to make. That's one of those where you can make it if you want or just leave him there at Valencia and possibly look at him in the future. But when you've got David Alaba and Jose Gaya in your team right from the beginning, Gaya playing understudy for Alaba, that is a really, really awesome prospect, isn't it? But regardless, also a big came in there for Fernando of Manchester City. I'd also recommend getting rid of him if you can and try and sell him on as soon as possible. Of course, City signed Fabian Delph in the summer transfer window. Fernando is only one rating higher than Delph at 78 overall. He's got no potential to get any better, and in my opinion, with the arrival of William Carvalho, who's just about to sign from Sporting. I think getting rid of Fernando for around £5 million covers a bit of that William Carvalho fee. That would be a pretty decent deal. Also, Jose Gaya as well for £11 million plus Clichy. Once again, this is a deal which you don't have to do. Some may call it a waste of money, £11 million plus Gael Clichy, but again, you're looking to build for the future Manchester City. Aging fullbacks, try and replace them, try and bring in younger replacements, and talk about this for a scenario. Jose Gaya playing understudy for David Alaba for many, many years to come in the left-back position. That is unbelievably threatening, isn't it? Regardless, William Carvalho could come in for around £18.5 million. That is £4 million over the valuation of the Portuguese holding midfielder, but 23 years old, already 81 overall, already good enough to go straight into your first team and partner Yaya Toure in that CM/DM position. As you can see his stats right here, defensively, very, very solid. Technically on the ball as well, good range of passing too. Always important, I feel, for good defensive midfielders. Very, very decent stats, medium-high work rates, 6'2", very, very strong. The ideal replacement for Yaya Toure for the future. And also Jose Gaya as well, again, for £11 million plus Gael Clichy. Once again, I will reiterate, you don't have to do this deal. Some may call it a waste of money, and that's totally fine. But for me, I love the idea of having Gaya playing understudy for Alaba for years to come. That is really, really threatening for that left-sided position. If you ever lost Alaba to suspension or injury, knowing this guy is waiting in the wings to play in his place is just unbelievably good, isn't it? So Gaya coming in for around £11 million plus Clichy, in my opinion, would be a pretty good signing. Also, John Stones from Everton as well. You still got a few £1 million left to work with Manchester City. Not too much else to do. I'd recommend trying to get hold of John Stones from Everton. As you can see, they will accept a round evaluation bid. For Chelsea, I believe we had to pay £9 million for him in my Who to Sign for Chelsea career mode, but for Everton, here with Manchester City, we can get him for his valuation, which is £7 million. 77 overall, 21 years old. Of course, you sold on Demichelis, who is obviously 4 ratings higher, but 13 years older, and Stones does have the potential as well to hit 87 in the future as well. So Stones as a long-term replacement for Vincent Kompany would be a really, really good signing, in my opinion, and for £7 million, I think, is totally fair as well. So those are the 6 players I would recommend signing for a Manchester City career mode. Alaba for £30 million, Carvajal for £13 million plus Sanya, Gaya for £11 million plus Clichy, Horn for £5 million plus Caballero, Stones for £7 million, and Carvalho for £18.5 million. Very, very expensive. In total, that is £84.5 million, I do believe, for those 6 players. But when you look at the potentials of those players, Alaba 88, Carvajal 85, Gaya 87, Horn 87, Stones 87, and Carvalho 88 as well. You're building for the future with Manchester City, and you could be set up to dominate English and European football for many, many years to come. You've got perfect replacements for those aging players, really, really good young talent on your side as well. And of course, when tying up contracts to Ahi and Nacho of 85 potential and Angelino of 81 as well, you've got some youth coming through the system as well, not to mention players like Patrick Roberts and Brandon Barker as well. So a very, very decent Manchester City side, this one. It should be able to complete the objectives that you were set at the start of the save, if you will, when you start off with Manchester City, which is to win the Champions League, to win the Premier League, to win the Premier League, and to win a domestic cup as well. You should be able to hit all 3 of those objectives in the first season. Possibly not the Champions League. That could be quite a difficult one for you. Obviously, City never won it before, but I still do believe that if you're a good enough FIFA player, if you've got those signings in your arsenal as well, you should be okay to achieve those objectives. As you can see, we simulated the end of the season. City did win the title only by a point ahead of their rivals Manchester United, but still managed to get the job done. So a Premier League title for Manchester City in the first season, which I think really is mandatory with the money you would be spending. Sadly, there was no FA Cup success. They were beaten by Arsenal in the semi-finals, but they did win the Capital One Cup against their rivals United in the final by 3-0, and also as well did win the Champions League by beating Barcelona, who always get to the final of the Champions League in these Who to Sign Fors, by beating Barcelona by 3-1 in the final to pick up their first ever Champions League title. As you can see, the squad as well come the end of the season. All the players other than Gaya that you signed start growing ratings right from the beginning, which is really, really good to see. A few of them had really standout seasons too. So a very, very good debut year, particularly for players like William Carvalho, going up 3 ratings right from the beginning. It's a really, really good City squad. It's well set up for the future. You reduce the average age of the squad and start bringing in really high potential players for the future. This City side could dominate English football for many, many years to come. And for the first season as well, winning 3 trophies, the Capital One Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League as well, I call that a pretty successful first season. But that is my Who to Sign for Manchester City career mode. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any recommendations for who you would sign for Manchester City career mode, then feel free to let me know what they are in the comment section down below. Always love seeing how you guys would manage your team that I show you. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any recommendations for who to sign for a Manchester City career mode. And also don't forget to let me know who you want to see me do next as for what team to use in this Who to Sign for series. series. But thank you for watching the episode. Really hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.